The night smelled like iron and rain. Storm clouds pressed low over the desert, heavy as secrets. The town of Ash Hollow held its breath. A single lamp burned in the sheriff's office. The rest lay dark, waiting, listening. Hoofbeats came slow along the main street. A rider moved like a shadow through the rain dust, hat brim low, coat stiff with road grit. The horse blew steam and carried on. A bell clanged once in the wind and fell quiet again. Clara Bellamy stood on the boardwalk with a lantern cupped to her chest. The glass fogged when she breathed. She had been strong too long. Tonight she shook and still refused to step back from the edge of town. Her dress was plain, a black ribbon at her throat, silver ring on a leather thong at her neck. She touched that ring when the rider stopped 10 paces away. Wade Rourke looked up. The lantern cut a gold bar across his jaw and mouth. He was tall, scar at the cheekbone, eyes a color that changed with weather. He said nothing. The desert had taught him speech was a luxury. Presence was enough. Clara did not flinch. Her voice came steady. You took a debt from this town once. I am here to collect what the law will not. Her words floated between them like heat. Wade listened. His hand stayed clear of the revolver. He could feel the horse's heartbeat through the reins. He watched her fingers on that ring and wondered whose it had been. Who sent you? He asked. I sent me, she said. A gust crossed the street and rattled a sign. Somewhere a door clicked shut. Wade tipped his head. No, the storm drew near. A clean smell rose from the hard pan and the mesquite. He knew this weather. It washed tracks away. It gave a man a fresh start or buried him where he stood. Clara set the lantern on the rail. The light swayed and steadied. My father died on the Gallows Creek Drive, she said. 3 men ran the cattle off and left him under a cottonwood. He was not a perfect man. He was mine. I was told the leader rode with a black hat and a scar on his cheek. He was called Rourke. Wade let that sit. The past stepped forward with mud on its boots. He had been many men across the frontier, some worse than others. Names slid off a man when he crossed a river. Scars did not. You believe I killed him? He said. I have a gun and a grave that says I should ask you. She showed the pistol at her waist. Old, but kept clean. Her hand did not tremble. Wade saw the courage. He also saw the ache that ran under it like groundwater, the kind that makes a person stand too long in the rain. The sheriff is gone, she said, ridden south after a smuggler. No one cares what happens to one woman with a dead father and a name. So I came. I will hear truth, or I will take my truth. Wade stepped down from the horse. The leather creaked, boots hit wood. He kept his palms open. The wind cuffed his coat and sent sand skating over the street. He stood near enough to see the grief in her eyes. He tasted the storm at the corners of his mouth. I did ride with men who would not carry shame, he said. I left them when I learned my own. He swallowed. I have a scar. I carry a black hat. I have not been near Gallows Creek in 3 years. 3 years, she answered. That is about how long a story can live without air. Hello to you too, Wade said, and the dry line softened something. The night felt less like a blade. Clara's gaze drifted to the saddle. A second bedroll was tied there, a coffee pot, rope, the gear of a man who means to keep moving. She looked back to his face. You came through Ash Hollow for a reason. It is not the road most take. I came for water, he said, and a quiet roof. The weather said no to both under the lantern's glow. Wade saw a thin scar under Clara's ear. It looked like a broken teardrop. He did not ask. The story could wait. He knew the weight of stories. He knew the comfort of silence between two lives that had taken too much heat. He pointed toward the livery. "A man named Boone owes me a favor," he said. "He will stable the horse. I can talk after that. If you still want to point that pistol at me, I would rather it be indoors when the rain hits. I want words more than thunder," she said. But then she whispered, almost to herself, "I want to stop shaking." Something shifted. The first soft turn. Desire did not come like a fire. It came like shelter, like the thought of dry hands wrapping a cup. Wade felt it, a pull he had not trusted in years. Not lust, not yet. A hunger to be of use, to be kinder than the world had been to him. The night closed in close, and the street went empty. They crossed to the livery. Boone's dog barked and then wagged its whole back half. Boone himself pushed the doors aside and blinked at the two shapes. He gave Wade a nod and a thin smile. He took the reins without words. He knew storm men when he saw them. In the shadow of the hay, Wade loosened the cinch. Clara stood near the threshold. The wind curled her hair against her cheek. He saw her watch his hands. He worked neat and quiet. He moved like a man who had learned to do no harm unless he meant it. "You could have lied to me," she said. "I could have," he said, "but I would have heard it in my sleep. I do not need more of that." Clara's throat worked. She touched the leather thong again. The ring caught a line of lantern light. Wade's gaze tracked it. He recognized the make. A simple silver band, a man's size, a rancher's mark etched faint across the inside. HB, her Bellamy name tucked against a letter he could not quite place. She saw him see it. "My father's," she said. "I wear it the way a prayer gets kept, close enough to burn." Wade nodded once. The horse blew and settled. Boone stacked a fork of hay and left them. The livery quieted to the sound of rain beginning to stitch the roof. Wade and Clara were alone with the breath of animals and the soft squeak of leather. He leaned on a stall post. His voice dropped slower. "The men I rode with a long time back were led by Cass Moreau. Cass liked to use small towns and old names. He would ride in the dark before a job and learn who people were. He knew how to cut a man where he loved. If your father died, the way you say, there is a chance Moreau used my name to salt the wound. You expect me to believe an outlaw was framed by another outlaw," she said. "No. I expect you to believe what feels true in your bones. I expect you to keep that pistol in reach until I find Moreau and put him in the ground or in your sight. I expect you to trust me only as far as you can throw a stone. I expect very little, except this. I'm not the one who killed your father." The rain grew heavier. The sound steadied the air between them. Clara lifted her chin. The first edge of her anger softened at the corners. She did not lower her guard. She lowered her breath. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Because I carry a tally," Wade said. "Because I am tired of hearing the wrong stories survive. Because the way you stand in this storm makes me think there is still something worth clearing." Clara closed her eyes. She let the rain write its quiet script across the roof. When she opened them, her gaze had changed. Not trust, not yet. A space where trust might live. "There's a spare room behind my boarding house," she said. "It is small. It is clean. You can stay one night. By morning, we will know if the storm leaves tracks we can follow." Wade touched the brim of his hat. "Thank you, Miss Bellamy." Clara, she said. He nodded. Clara. They stepped out into the street. The rain fell full now and washed the dust into dark threads. The lamp at the sheriff's office went out. Ash Hollow smelled like wet iron and rope and the beginning of something that might not end in blood. They walked with a careful distance between them. A warmth kept pace all the same. Not heat, not yet. A shaping. A promise that the desert would test and the firelight would reveal. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The night still has miles to ride. Let your presence be known. Your voice keeps this fire burning for the next chapter. Rain whispered all night against the windows of Clara Bellamy's boarding house. The rooms smelled of soap, wood smoke, and a faint trace of lavender she never meant to wear for anyone. She had not slept. She had listened to footsteps below, the soft creak of a chair, the slow exhale of a man who carried ghosts. Wade Rourke had taken the small back room without a word. He'd hung his coat by the stove, rolled his sleeves, and dried his revolver with a rag. His movements were steady, quiet, stripped of pride. Clara had watched from the stairs, unseen. She meant to hate him. Instead, she saw a man repairing something invisible with every careful gesture. By dawn, the storm broke. The desert outside glowed silver, puddles catching the first shy light. The town awoke slow. A rooster crowed somewhere behind the livery. Wade stood at the window, shirt half-buttoned, steam from his coffee curling in the air. His eyes stayed on the road as if he expected trouble to ride out of the sunrise. Clara came down in a shawl, her hair loose, her voice rough from silence. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Wade said. "Storms do that. They talk louder than a man's thoughts." "Mine never quiet," she answered. He turned. The morning light framed her face. Tired eyes, bare shoulders under thin wool. There was no vanity there, just the truth of a woman who had survived too much to pretend. "You got people in this town?" he asked. "I have walls. I pay rent. That's enough." He nodded, sipping the bitter coffee. "Sometimes it is." The quiet stretched until she broke it. "You said the man's name was Cass Moreau. You think he's alive?" "More than alive. Men like him don't die easy. They rot slow." Clara wrapped her shawl tighter. "Then we find him." Wade studied her. "We?" She met his gaze. "I didn't come this far to let another man decide how justice sounds." He almost smiled. "You don't scare easy." "I learned from storms," she said. Wade set the cup down and reached for his hat. "Then saddle up. We'll start with the trading post west of here." Cass had friends who kept their ears in whiskey. Clara hesitated. "What makes you think I trust you enough to ride beside you?" He fastened his gun belt. "You don't have to. Just trust the road more than the house. Roads tell truths, walls don't." Outside, the air smelled of wet dust and sun-warmed wood. Horses stamped in their stalls, restless after the storm. Boone waved from the livery. "You heading west, Rourke?" "Just for a look." Boone's eyes flicked to Clara, then back. "You do be careful. Roads washed near Copper Ridge." "We'll manage," Wade said. They rode out slow. Hooves splashing through the street. Clara's skirts brushed the saddle. Her pistol glinted at her hip. The horizon opened wide. Miles of pale desert, rimmed by blue mountains. The storm had scoured the world clean. For a while, they said nothing. The wind did the talking, warm and restless. "You were right," Clara said at last, "about the way silence can heal." Wade glanced her way. You believe in healing? I believe in trying, even if it breaks you twice. He nodded. That's the only kind worth believing in. A hawk circled overhead. The sound of the saddle leather creaked in rhythm with the horse's steps. Somewhere in that silence, something in Clara began to ease. Not trust, not forgiveness, just the first hint that the world could hold more than pain. They reached Copper Ridge by noon. The trading post squatted between two dry washes, a crooked porch, a hanging sign that read, Mercantile. A few wagons stood out front. The smell of dust, tobacco, and animal sweat clung to the air. Inside, the keeper, a round man named Doyle, looked up from his ledger. Wade Rourke didn't think I'd see her hide again. Life's full of surprises, Wade said, looking for a man. Cass Moreau. Doyle's eyes darted toward Clara, then back. You bring in the law now. No law, Wade said. Just a woman with a reason. Doyle spat into a tin. Heard talk down at the Santa Mesa mine. A drifter asking for new hands. Goes by Moreau still. Bold as ever. How long ago? Wade asked. 3 weeks. Wade nodded. You hear what he's after? Gold, Doyle said, same as always. And blood, when the gold runs out. Clara stepped forward. Where's this mine? South Ridge. 2 days if you ride hard. Wade tipped his hat. Much obliged. As they turned to leave, Doyle called after them. Careful, Rourke. That man's the kind who kills hope before breakfast. Wade didn't answer. Outside, the sun beat down, clean and merciless. Clara mounted up. You knew he'd show again, didn't you? Men like him always do, Wade said. The trick is catching the moment before they vanish again. They rode until the land turned to red stone and wind-carved ridges. By sunset, they made camp near a dry creek bed. Wade built a small fire, the light dancing on his hands. Clara sat across from him, her hair loose, face soft in the glow. You ever kill a man for something you didn't do? She asked quietly. Wade poked the fire. No, but I've died a little for everyone I did. Clara looked at him for a long time. You talk like you've already forgiven yourself. I haven't, he said. That's what keeps me from sleep. The fire cracked between them. Heat shimmered over the silence. You remind me of him, she said. Your father? She nodded. He used to say men don't change. They just get tired enough to wish they had. Wade smiled faintly. Sounds like someone I'd have wanted to ride with. Her voice softened. He'd have liked you. That's the worst part. They sat in the quiet until the fire turned to embers. Above, stars spilled like salt over black velvet. Wade leaned back on his saddle roll, watching the sky. Clara's shadow moved closer to the firelight. She reached for her ring again, twisting it once. Slow. You really mean to help me? She asked. I do, he said. Why? Wade stared into the flames. Because maybe helping you is the first thing I've done that don't need an apology. Clara's breath caught. Something warm flickered where grief had lived too long. The rain had washed the dust clean, but it had left a new mark in both of them. Soft, unspoken, waiting to bloom. If this story has stirred something quiet inside you, stay close. The desert still holds the truth they're chasing, and the night is far from done. The morning came clear and sharp, the kind of light that left nothing hidden. Wade Rourke rose before dawn, boiled coffee black as his thoughts, and checked the horses. Clara stirred in her bedroll, hair tangled, cheeks flushed with sleep and the faint chill of desert air. When she opened her eyes, She found him staring into the horizon, as if the world might confess something if he waited long enough. "You always watch the sunrise?" she asked. He nodded once. "Only when I need to remember I'm still breathing." Clara sat up, drawing the blanket close. "You sound like a man who doesn't expect to keep doing it long." Wade poured her a tin cup of coffee. "Some men don't get to expect much. They just ride until the dust takes their name." She took the cup, the heat seeping into her palms. "And you? What's left for you when the dust takes yours?" He met her eyes. "Maybe peace. Maybe forgiveness. Maybe you." The words hung between them, simple, dangerous, too raw for the quiet morning. Clara looked away, heart thudding faster than she wanted. The desert wind shifted, lifting the scent of sage and smoke. They broke camp. By mid-morning, they reached the edge of Santa Mesa territory. The land stretched red and gold, carved by wind into bones of the earth. Far off, the sound of hammering echoed from the mine. Wade slowed his horse. "From here we walk. Too many eyes on the ridge." Clara followed without question. She tied her horse in a shallow cut, adjusted her pistol, and fell into step beside him. Every movement of his body, measured, deliberate, made her pulse skip. He walked like a man used to being hunted, and maybe that was what she had come to understand. They found cover behind a cluster of rocks overlooking the mine. Men moved below like ants, hauling sacks, shouting, laughing. A tall figure with a red scarf stood near the foreman's tent, directing the chaos with a grin that didn't belong in daylight. Wade's breath stilled. "That's him, Cass Moreau." Clara's jaw tightened. "You're sure?" "As sure as I've been about anything." She studied the man, the easy swagger, the cruel ease of his laughter. "That's the face I've seen in my nightmares," she whispered. Wade looked at her. "You want him dead." Her voice broke. "I want him gone. The way my father was. The way every dream turned hollow after." He nodded slow. "Then we find a way to make it right." They stayed until dusk, watching patterns, counting men, noting rifles and blind spots. When the sun dropped behind the ridge, Wade touched her arm. "We ride back to camp. We'll move when the moon's down." Clara's voice trembled. "And then what?" "Then justice," he said. "Your kind, not the law's." The ride back was silent. The night carried a strange calm, the kind before a storm finds its thunder. Clara's thoughts turned heavy. She had dreamed of vengeance for years, but now that the moment lived close enough to touch, it felt like holding fire barehanded. At camp, Wade gathered the rifles and checked the bullets by lantern light. The glow brushed his face, turning the scar into a dark river across his cheek. Clara sat near the fire, her fingers twisting the silver ring again and again. "You should sleep," he said. "I can't." He poured her a sip of whiskey, passed the flask. "Then drink." She hesitated, and then took it. The burn spread through her, sharp and clean. "You always this gentle to women who aim guns at you?" "Only the ones who mean it." Clara smiled, faint but real. "You think I'm dangerous?" He met her gaze. "I think you're alive, and that's rarer than dangerous." The words softened something in her she didn't know she still had. The silence between them grew warm, no longer the silence of strangers, but of two people who had seen too much and yet stayed. "You ever been loved, Wade?" she asked quietly. He thought about it. "Once, long ago. Didn't end clean." "Why not?" "Because I didn't know how to stay when the world got kind." Clara looked into the fire. "Maybe that's something you could still learn." He smiled, tired and tender. Maybe that's something you could teach. For a moment, the world shrank to the crackle of the fire and the steady rhythm of their breathing. The desert wind hushed, as if afraid to intrude. Then far off, a gunshot echoed from the direction of the mine. One, then two. Wade stood. They're restless down there. Something's happening early. Clara rose too. Then we move now. He nodded. Before they bury their tracks. They doused the fire, saddled the horses in near darkness. The moon slipped behind a bank of clouds, and the land turned to shadow. Wade looked back once, at the faint glow where their camp had been, and then at her. You still sure you want this? Her answer came steady. I've never been sure of anything. He held her gaze for a long breath. Then stay close. Don't fire until I say, and whatever happens, don't run. Clara gripped the reins. I don't run anymore. They rode into the darkness, two silhouettes bound by loss and the fragile thread of something neither dared name. The desert stretched before them, silent and infinite, holding its secrets tight. If this story has found a place in your heart tonight, let it stay there a while. The desert is only beginning to speak. The desert at night was a living thing, breathing, whispering, holding its secrets close. The wind carried the scent of mesquite and smoke from the mine, faint but certain. Wade Rourke rode ahead, hat low, every sense sharpened to the rhythm of danger. Clara followed, her heart thudding louder than her horse's hooves. They reached the ridge above Santa Mesa just before the moon broke free of the clouds. Below, the camp glowed with scattered lanterns. Men moved like restless shadows, their laughter coarse and careless. The sound of shovels rang against rock. Wade dismounted and crouched low. We wait till they settle, he whispered. Clara slid from her saddle and knelt beside him, eyes fixed on the figures below. She could see Cass Moreau now, the red scarf at his neck, the easy way he leaned against a barrel, like the world belonged to him. Her hand found the pistol at her side. Her breath trembled. Wade caught the motion and shook his head. Not yet. You shoot now, and the whole ridge comes alive. We do this clean or not at all. Clara's voice was tight. You think I can't aim? I think you want it too much, Wade said softly. That's when hands shake. She looked at him, fire flashing in her eyes. You think I came all this way to watch? No, he said. I think you came all this way to finish what the world started. But we do it my way. The words held more care than command, and that steadied her. She nodded. Then what's your way? Wait for the drunk ones to sleep, he said. The rest guard the east trail. We come in through the west, slow and quiet, no noise, no light. The night stretched long. One by one, the lanterns dimmed. Laughter turned to snores. Wade watched until the last fire burned low, then motioned for her to follow. They slid down the slope, boots sinking into loose dirt. Every sound felt too loud, every breath too heavy. At the edge of camp, they moved between wagons and crates. A man snored against a wheel, bottle in hand. Wade stepped over him, silent as wind. Clara's pulse raced. Her father's ring felt hot against her chest. They reached the largest tent. Cass Moreau slept inside, coat draped over chair, revolver at arm's reach. The firelight flickered across his face, the same grin, frozen in rest, cruel even in dreams. Clara's breath hitched. Her hand trembled on the pistol. Wade leaned close, his voice a whisper against her ear. If you pull that trigger, he dies fast. You'll get your vengeance, but not your peace. She stared at the sleeping man. He took everything from me. I know, Wade said, but if you take his life, he wins twice. You carry him forever. Her jaw clenched. Then what do I do? Let me talk first, Wade said. If he's guilty, he'll hang by sunrise. If not by law, then by his own hand. Clara lowered the pistol a fraction. You promise me he won't walk away? I promise, Wade said. He stepped inside. The tent flap stirred. Cass Moreau's eyes flicked open, quick and sharp. He reached for his gun, but Wade's boot pinned his wrist before steel met air. Well, I'll be damned, Cass said, laughter rough and low. Didn't think you'd crawl out of your grave, Rourke. Some ghosts come back to finish what you started, Wade said. Cass grinned. You never learned, did you? You leave a job half done. It comes hunting you. This one's done tonight, Wade said. Cass's gaze shifted past him, toward the shadow where Clara waited. Who's she? He asked. Another one you ruined? Wade's voice hardened. Her name's Clara Bellamy. You killed her father. Cass laughed, a dry, mean sound. Old Bellamy? He stood where he shouldn't. Thought owning a brand made him untouchable. I just taught him what the frontier already knew. The words sliced through Clara like a blade. She stepped forward, gun shaking in her hand. Say his name again, she whispered. Cass tilted his head. Bellamy. The pistol rose. Wade moved quick, catching her wrist. Not like this, he said. Her voice cracked. You heard him. He's proud of it. I heard him, Wade said. Now he answers to both of us. Cass sneered. You think I fear your justice, Rourke? You got as much blood on your hands as I do. Maybe, Wade said, but mine's been washed clean by rain and regret. Yours still stinks. He drew his revolver slow, steady, and pressed it to Cass's chest. Tell me why you used my name that night. Cass smiled. Because it fit. You were gone. The world needed a villain, and you, my friend, already had the face for it. Wade's jaw tightened. Then this face is the last you'll see. Before Cass could answer, a voice shouted outside. Boss, Ryder's coming. Cass lunged, knocking Wade's hand aside. The gun fired. A lantern crashed, flame leaping up the canvas. Smoke filled the air. Wade grabbed Clara's arm. Run. They burst from the tent as fire spread fast. Men stumbled from their bedrolls, guns drawn. The camp erupted in chaos. Wade fired twice, dropping one man, grabbing Clara by the waist as another shot split the air beside them. They dove behind a wagon. Firelight painted their faces gold and red. Clara gasped, her fingers clutching his coat. He's still in there. Then the fire will finish what we couldn't, Wade said. Cass's scream cut through the roar of the blaze. One sound, then silence. The heat burned their skin as they scrambled toward the ridge. Behind them, the mine burned like a dying sun. Clara looked back once, tears mingling with ash. It's done, she whispered. Wade shook his head. No, it's only started. Men like him always leave something behind. They rode until the fire was a memory on the horizon. The desert cooled beneath the stars, wind soft as breath. When they finally stopped, Wade slid from the saddle, helped her down. His hands lingered longer than they should have. She stood close, trembling. You saved me. He looked at her, eyes dark and full. You would have done the same. No, she said, I would have burned with him. The truth in her voice broke something open in him. Without thinking, Wade reached up, brushed the soot from her cheek. His thumb stayed there, tracing the edge of her jaw. She didn't pull away. The world had gone quiet again. No gunfire, no storm, just the hum of the earth catching its breath. If you're still listening, his voice dropped to a whisper meant for the wind. The night ain't through telling its story. If this story has touched the dust on your heart, stay close. The fire's not gone. It's only learning how to warm instead of burn. The dawn came slow, bleeding over the desert like a wound that refused to close. Smoke from the burned mine still drifted along the horizon, thin and gray. Wade Rourke and Clara Bellamy had ridden until their horses foamed, until the land turned pale again, and silence took back the world. They stopped by a shallow creek that still held the night's chill. Wade unsaddled the horses, his movements quiet, careful. Clara knelt at the water's edge, washing ash from her hands. The reflection that stared back at her looked older, eyes lined with something she could not name. "You don't have to carry what burned back there," Wade said behind her. She looked over her shoulder. "You think it's that easy?" "No," he said, "but it's possible." Clara dipped her hands again. "Cass Moreau is dead. The man who murdered my father is gone. So why does it still feel like I can't breathe?" Wade crouched beside her. "Because vengeance don't end clean. It leaves smoke inside." She turned toward him. "You ever feel it?" "Every day," he said. "Some mornings I wake thinking the man I killed still breathes somewhere, that maybe he's just waiting for me to remember his name." The creek whispered around their boots. Clara's voice softened. "You never said who it was." He looked at the horizon, a ranch hand in Sonora. "I was 20. He drew first, but I was faster. Didn't matter, his boy was watching. Since then, I ride with ghosts." Clara's eyes glistened. "That boy grew up hating your name." "Maybe," Wade said, "or maybe he grew up tired of hate, same as you." Something in her broke then, not loud, not wild, just a slow unbinding of all the tight, cold things inside her. Her shoulders trembled. She covered her face as if the desert had no right to see her cry. Wade reached out, his hand hovering before it touched her. When it did, it was gentle, solid, the kind of touch that didn't take, only steadied. "It's all right," he murmured. "You don't owe the world your strength every hour." She let him hold her then. The sob that came was small, but it carried years. His hand stayed at her back, the heat of him grounding her until the tears turned quiet. When she lifted her face, their eyes met, close enough to taste breath. The air between them was thick with something that wasn't sorrow anymore. "Wade," she whispered. He brushed a lock of hair from her cheek. "Yeah." Her voice trembled. "What if peace feels like you?" He didn't answer. Words would have ruined the moment. He just leaned in until her forehead rested against his. Her breath hitched. The desert wind hushed, as if waiting. The kiss didn't come sudden. It came slow, careful, like the world might shatter if they rushed it. Her lips met his, soft and trembling, and the ache of years turned into something almost holy. When they parted, the silence that followed was tender. She smiled through her tears. "You didn't ask for that." He looked at her, voice rough. "I didn't have to." They sat by the water until the sun climbed high. A hawk drifted above, lazy and bright. Wade stood, poured water into his hands, and washed his face. The scar on his cheek caught the light. "What happens now?" Clara asked. "We ride east," he said. "There's a town near Hollow Bend. They'll hear what happened at the mine. Cass Moreau had men. Someone will come looking. She rose. Then we face them. You're not done fighting, are you? She smiled faintly. I've been fighting since I was born. Might as well finish proper. They saddled up. The heat shimmered off the rocks as they rode. Two dark figures against the gold of the plains. By late afternoon, they reached a line of cottonwoods and an old way station. The porch sagged, windows boarded. Wade dismounted first, tested the boards with his boot. Looks empty, good enough for rest. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust. Broken sunlight fell across the floorboards. Clara dropped her saddlebag and stretched, the motion pulling her dress tight at the waist. Wade looked away, jaw tightening. You can look, she said softly. I'm not glass. He smiled faintly. Never said you were. Just trying to remember what respect feels like. She stepped closer. Respect doesn't mean distance, Wade. His breath caught. No, but distance keeps a man honest. Maybe honesty isn't what either of us needs right now, she said. He turned to face her. The space between them vanished. The air felt charged again, heavy with what they hadn't said. Her hand found the edge of his coat. His found her wrist, trembling slightly. Clara, he murmured, voice rough as gravel. I'm done being afraid, she said. Her lips found his before he could speak. The kiss was deeper this time. No tremor, no hesitation. He lifted her slightly, her hands curling into his shirt. The years of silence in both of them broke open with that touch. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady beneath the scars. He whispered, You sure? I've never been more sure, she said, not about vengeance, about this. He held her longer as the light through the broken window turned amber and soft. The desert outside was silent, but the air inside the station pulsed with life, slow, human, healing. As night came, Wade lit a lantern, its flame soft and golden. Clara leaned against the wall, eyes half closed. The warmth between them no longer burned. It soothed. He looked at her and thought, maybe the frontier isn't a place. It's a person you find when the road ends. If this story has gentled your heart, like the first light after a storm, stay close. The night's not over yet, and the fire between them has only begun to glow. The night at the way station wrapped them in a quiet too deep to name. Outside, the wind murmured through the cottonwoods, and the desert breathed slow again, as if easing after years of holding its breath. Inside, the lantern's glow softened the rough edges of the room. Old walls, cracked glass, the ghost of lives long gone. Wade Rourke sat at the edge of the cot, boots off, hat resting on his knee. Clara Bellamy lay beneath a thin blanket, her face turned toward him, eyes half-lidded with the kind of peace she hadn't known since childhood. You're still awake, she murmured. Old habits, he said. Sleep too deep and something finds you. Not everything that finds you means harm. He looked at her then, long and quiet. I know that now. The lantern flickered. She watched the way the light caught his scar, how it softened what the years had hardened. You ever think about stopping? She asked. Not running, not chasing, just being still somewhere? Wade leaned back, the cot creaking under his weight. Every day I try to picture it. A small porch, coffee before sunrise, maybe a dog that don't bark at the wind. And someone beside you. He hesitated. Didn't think I earned that part. Clara sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Maybe earning isn't the point anymore. Maybe it's about what's left to give. Wade smiled faintly. And what's left in you, Clara Bellamy? She met his gaze without fear, enough to build something worth staying for. The words hit him deep. He reached for his shirt, tossed it aside. The scars across his chest caught the light, maps of every fight, every mistake. This is all I've got to offer, he said. She rose, crossed the space between them, and touched one of the scars. Then that's enough. Her fingers lingered, tracing old wounds as if learning them by heart. He closed his eyes, breath thickening, the air filled with warmth that had nothing to do with the lantern. When he opened them again, she was closer. The blanket slipped from her shoulders, falling soft to the floor. Her skin glowed pale against the shadows, fragile and strong at once. "Clara," he whispered, a warning and a prayer in one word. "Don't stop me," she said. "I don't want to." She kissed him then, slow, certain, no hesitation left. His hands found her waist, her hair, the curve of her back. The world narrowed to breath and heartbeat, and the soft sounds of two people who had been starved for tenderness. They moved together in the half-light, every touch a confession, every sigh a promise not to be broken. The storm that had once lived between them had turned to calm. When it was done, they lay still, the silence no longer heavy, but alive. Clara's voice came soft against his chest. "I didn't think healing would feel like this." "It don't come easy," Wade said. "It comes when you stop fighting what's meant to stay." She smiled, tracing the line of his jaw. "You sound like a preacher," he chuckled, "more like a man who ran out of sins to hide behind." She closed her eyes, resting against him. "Then maybe we both found something we weren't looking for." He looked down at her, the weight of her words sinking deep. Outside, coyotes called across the flats. Somewhere, the first stars began to fade toward dawn. When she slept, he stayed awake, watching her breathe. He thought about Cass Moreau, the fire, the revenge that was supposed to end everything. Instead, it had begun something new, something fragile enough to fear and strong enough to believe in. By morning, the sky burned pale blue. Wade stepped outside, the cool air washing over his bare shoulders. He scanned the horizon. The world looked different now, but danger still lived in it. Tracks in the sand led north, fresh, 4, maybe 5 riders. He went back inside. Clara stirred when he touched her shoulder. "Trouble?" she asked, still half in dreams. "Maybe," he said. "Moreau's men. They'll come hunting what they lost." She sat up, the sleep gone from her voice. "Then we ride." He shook his head. "You don't have to." She met his eyes. "Don't tell me what I have to do, Wade Rourke. I came this far to finish it." He smiled, proud and sad all at once. "Then we finish it together." They packed fast, saddlebags, water, rifles. Wade doused the lantern, the smoke curling up like a goodbye. Before she stepped out, Clara turned once, her hand brushing the door frame. "Feels wrong to leave something warm behind." He touched her back. "Then we make another place for it." As they mounted up, the wind picked up dust again, carrying the scent of coming heat. Wade looked east, to the ridgeline where the tracks disappeared. "They'll reach the canyon by noon," he said. "Then we meet them there." He nodded. "One way or another it ends today." They rode out, 2 silhouettes against the waking sun, scarred, alive, and bound not by vengeance anymore, but by something deeper. The desert had taken everything from them once. Now it watched as they took something back. If this story has stirred the quiet ache beneath your ribs, stay close. The road ahead is steep, but love has learned how to ride beside danger. The canyon waited like an open wound under the midday sun. Sharp stone walls rose on either side, their shadows falling long and cool across the sand. Wade Rourke rode at the front, scanning the ridges. Behind him, Clara Bellamy's horse stepped careful and steady, her eyes never leaving his back. By noon the air shimmered with heat. The silence carried weight, too perfect, too expectant. Wade slowed his horse, raised a hand. "They're close," he said. Clara drew her pistol. "How close?" "Close enough to smell the dust on their boots." A shot cracked from the rocks above. The bullet split a piece of shale inches from Wade's head. He swung off his saddle, pulling Clara down beside him. Down. She hit the ground hard, the taste of grit in her mouth. Another shot followed, then another. Wade fired back once, quick and clean, the echo swallowed by the canyon's throat. 4 riders came into view on the ridge, Cass Moreau's men, faces banded with red scarves, rifles flashing in the sun. "They think you're still with him," Clara said, "and then let's give them a reason to think twice." He motioned toward a narrow cut that wound upward through the rock. "You take that path. I'll draw them out." Her voice sharpened. "No, you're not doing this alone." "Clara," I said no. She loaded around, hand steady. "You saved me once. Don't think that gives you the right to die for me." Wade studied her face, the dirt on her cheek, the light in her eyes that fear couldn't touch. "You always this stubborn?" "Only when it matters." He smiled then, small but real. "All right. Let's make them regret coming back." They moved like ghosts, splitting along the canyon's edge. The gunfire came harder now, echoing off the stone. Wade dropped one man with a clean shot to the shoulder. The others scattered, their horses skittering against the rocks. Clara crouched behind a boulder, heart pounding. She saw one rider circle low, trying to flank Wade. Without thinking, she stood, aimed, and fired. The man fell. Her hand shook once, then steadied. Wade turned at the sound. "You all right?" She nodded, voice breathless. "Better than I thought." The fight stretched long and hot. When the last shot faded, dust drifted through the canyon like smoke after battle. Wade rose from behind cover, revolver still warm in his hand. "It's done," he said. Clara joined him, scanning the rocks. "Are you sure?" He pointed toward the ridge. "2 gone. 1 ran north. He'll carry the story. That's enough." The air was still again. Only the wind moved, whispering through the dry brush. Clara sank down on a flat rock, her breath ragged. "Now what?" she asked. Wade holstered his gun. "Now we find somewhere that doesn't echo with gunfire." He knelt in front of her, gently taking her hand. Her palm was blistered from the grip of the pistol. He unwrapped a strip of cloth from his sleeve and tied it around her fingers. "Does it hurt?" he asked. She looked at him. "Not as much as it used to." Their eyes held. The heat between them had changed, no longer born of fury or fear, but of survival, of shared blood and silence. The canyon wind lifted her hair. Wade brushed a strand away, his thumb grazing her temple. "You saved me back there," he said. "You would have done the same." "I wasn't sure I'd get the chance." Her throat tightened. "Don't talk like that." He smiled faintly. "Hard to help it when the world keeps trying to prove me wrong." She leaned closer, her forehead resting against his. The touch was simple, steady, but it felt like a vow. "I can't lose you," she whispered. "You won't," he said. "Not while I can draw breath." They stayed that way, still as stone, until the sun began to drop behind the ridges. The canyon turned gold, then red, then the soft color of ashes. When they finally mounted up, the light had gone gentle. They rode in silence, their shadows long and touching across the sand. By twilight, they reached a small spring nestled between the rocks. The air there was cooler, touched by the smell of wild sage. Wade set up a small fire while Clara fetched water. When she returned, he was sitting with his hat off, the firelight catching the quiet on his face. She handed him the canteen. "For a man who says little, you've got a lot running through your eyes." He took a drink, then smiled. "You read me too easy. Maybe I just see what you're trying to hide." He looked at her, really looked. "And what do you see, Clara?" She didn't hesitate. "A man who's tired of running from good things." Wade's chest rose slow. Maybe I finally found one worth stopping for." The night grew soft around them. The fire's glow reached up the canyon walls like memory. Clara leaned against his shoulder, his arm wrapping around her. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't born from pain. It was peace. "If this story has left a warmth beneath your skin, stay near. The desert still has one more storm to break, and their hearts have farther yet to ride." Morning crept through the canyon like a secret not meant to last. The fire had burned to ash, and the sky stretched pale and white above them. Wade Rourke woke first. The stillness of the desert was deceptive, too quiet, too clean after blood. He studied Clara Bellamy where she slept, her head resting against his shoulder, the faint rise and fall of her breath steady as a heartbeat. For the first time in years, he let himself feel peace. He stood and walked toward the edge of the spring, washing his face in the cold water. The reflection that stared back wasn't the man he'd been, a ghost of dust and guilt, but someone half reborn. Behind him, Clara stirred. "You always move like you expect the ground to bite," she said softly. He turned, smiling faintly. "That's the thing about this land. It remembers every sin." She rose, tying her hair back, the morning light turning it the color of honey. "Then maybe we should give it something good to remember." He tilted his head. "Like what?" "Like two people who finally stopped running." Her words made him still. Wade had learned to live with danger, with silence, with regret. But the thought of staying, of building something, felt heavier than any bullet. Before he could answer, the distant echo of hooves cut through the air. He tensed, every instinct snapping awake. Clara grabbed her rifle. "You said one of them ran north." "Looks like he found company," Wade said. They climbed to the ridge. 5 riders appeared in the distance, small against the horizon but closing fast. Dust rose behind them in a sharp trail. Clara's hand found his arm. "We can't outrun them," he nodded. "Then we make our stand here." They moved quick, choosing ground between 2 boulders where the canyon narrowed. Wade checked the rifles, his fingers steady. Clara crouched beside him, eyes fierce. "I'm not afraid," she said. "I know," he said. "That's what scares me." The riders drew closer. Wade could see faces now, hard men, scarred and sunburned, eyes cold with hunger. Cass Moreau might be gone, but his kind lingered like smoke after a fire. Wade raised his rifle. "You see the one with the black hat? He's leading." Clara aimed beside him. Then we take him first. The first shots rang out, sharp as thunder. The men scattered, firing back. The echo rolled through the canyon, rattling the stone. Wade dropped one rider clean through the shoulder. Clara hit another's horse, sending it down in a cloud of dust. Bullets chipped rock inches from her head. Wade shifted, covering her flank. "Keep low." "I'm fine," she shouted back, firing again. The rhythm between them felt almost practiced, like a dance forged by survival. But one of the men flanked them from above, a shape moving fast along the ridge. Wade turned too late. The shot came sharp. Clara cried out and dropped her rifle. He caught her before she fell, his heart seizing. Blood stained her sleeve. "You're hit." "It's nothing," she said through clenched teeth. "Keep fighting." Wade's jaw hardened. He set her down behind the rocks, eyes dark as storm clouds. "Stay here." He moved like shadow and fire. 2 shots. Clean. Final. The ridge fell silent. The last rider turned to flee, but Wade's bullet found his stirrup strap, throwing him to the ground. He didn't get up. When the smoke cleared, Wade stood alone in the echo. He went back to Clara, dropping to his knees beside her. "Let me see," he said. She shook her head. "It's just a graze." He tore the sleeve open anyway. The wound was shallow, but bleeding fast. He wrapped it with his bandana, tying it tight. "You scared me," he said. "You'd miss me," she whispered, half smiling. "I already do," he said, voice low. She met his eyes, the fear gone now. "You didn't have to stay." "I didn't have a choice." He leaned back against the rock, pulling her gently into his arms. The world around them was wrecked. Spent shells, trampled dust, the smell of gunpowder. But the moment felt holy. "You keep saving me," she said softly. He looked at her, eyes tired but tender. "No, you're the one who made it worth saving." The wind rose, curling around them, carrying the scent of rain somewhere far away. Clara rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat beneath the bruises and scars. For a while, neither spoke. The desert didn't ask for words. It asked for presence. Then Clara said, "When this is done, I want to build something small, quiet, a place that doesn't echo with gunfire." Wade's voice dropped. "Where?" "Anywhere you'll stay." He smiled, slow and sad. "You sure you want to tie your life to a man the law still remembers?" She touched his face, thumb brushing the edge of his scar. "You're not the man they remember, and I'm not the girl I was when this started." The truth of that hung between them. He kissed her hand once, rough lips against soft skin. "Then maybe we stop running after all," he said. Evening found them still in the canyon, watching the last of the light fade into violet. The dead were buried shallow, the horses quiet. Life had taken too much from both of them, but somehow it had left enough to begin again. If this story has reached the tender ache behind your breath, stay near. The storm has passed, but love's reckoning waits just beyond the horizon. The rain came that night, slow and steady, washing the blood from the stones. It fell like mercy, quiet, relentless, unasked for. Wade Rourke sat beneath the overhang, his coat draped over Clara Bellamy's shoulders. The small fire between them hissed and steamed, fighting to stay alive against the drizzle. She shivered, though not from cold. The wound on her arm had stiffened, the cloth around it dark with rain. Wade checked the bandage again, his fingers steady, his touch careful. "You're good at this," she whispered. "I had to learn," he said. "No one else ever stuck around long enough to patch me up." Clara smiled faintly. You say that like you plan on me leaving. He met her eyes through the rising smoke. I don't plan much anymore. I'll just hold on to what stays. The words settled between them like a vow. The rain softened, the fire steadied. She reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. You saved me more times than I can count. You did the same, he said. You just don't see it yet. She tilted her head. What do you mean? You kept me human, Wade said. All this dust, all the killing. It gets inside a man. You reminded me what warmth feels like. Her breath caught. Wade. He looked into the fire, voice roughened. If I could start over, I'd ride different roads, ones that led me to you sooner. The rain grew lighter, fading into mist. Clara leaned closer. You don't need to start over. You just need to stop looking back. He smiled, tired but true. Maybe that's the hardest trail to ride. She shifted closer, close enough for her shoulder to touch his chest. Then let me ride it with you. He froze, then exhaled slowly. You sure about that? Her answer came like truth. I've never been sure of anything. They sat in silence after that, listening to the sound of the rain drip from the rocks. Wade's arm slipped around her shoulders, drawing her in. The desert had been cruel to them both, but here, under its endless sky, it finally gave something back. By dawn, the storm was gone. The world smelled of wet sage and clean earth. Mist hung low across the canyon floor. Wade stood, stretching his back, scanning the horizon. They won't come again, he said quietly. Men like that don't ride twice into fire. Clara rose beside him, the morning light soft against her face. Then it's over, he nodded. Almost. She frowned. Almost. Wade looked toward the east where the sun bled gold across the clouds. I've got one last debt to settle with myself. Her hand found his arm. Don't go chasing ghosts again. This one's real, he said. I need to tell the law what happened at Santa Mesa. Clear your name, clear mine. The town deserves truth more than rumor. Her eyes softened. You think they'll listen? They don't have to, he said, but they'll hear it. She stared at him a long moment. And if they don't let you walk away? Wade smiled faintly. Then I'll ride till they can't find my dust. Clara took a step closer. You always think the road ends with you leaving. That's how it's been. Not anymore, she said. You said the dust remembers sins. Maybe it can remember love too. He didn't speak. Her hand rose, rested against his cheek, thumb brushing the scar, like it could erase it. His eyes closed. The world narrowed to her touch, her breath, her warmth. Stay, she whispered. He opened his eyes, voice low. You want me to build that porch you talked about? She smiled through her tears. Yes, and I'll make the coffee before sunrise. He laughed quietly, the sound rough with something close to joy. Guess I can live with that. They saddled the horses and rode east toward Ash Hollow. The land around them glistened. Every rock and blade of grass washed clean. Birds wheeled overhead. The desert looked new, like it had forgiven itself overnight. As they rode, Clara glanced at him. You ever think about what comes after peace? He looked at her. Maybe peace is what comes after everything else. When they reached the edge of town, people stopped to stare. The outlaw had come home. The woman beside him rode tall, proud, no longer the girl who had walked into a storm chasing revenge. The sheriff stepped from his porch, rifle slung across his chest. Rourke, he said, heard you burned out Santa Mesa. Wade nodded. Cass Moreau's dead. The mine's gone. So are his men. The sheriff studied him, then looked at Clara. And her? She's the reason I came back, Wade said, and the reason I won't run again. The sheriff spat into the dust, then nodded once. Then maybe the desert's done with you. He turned and walked away. Wade let out a slow breath. Clara reached for his hand, their fingers laced. You're free, she whispered. He looked at her, the faintest smile tugging his mouth. No, Clara, we're free. The church bell rang in the distance, clear and pure against the wind. The sound rolled across the town like a promise. As the sun broke over Ash Hollow, Wade and Clara rode toward it, two souls scarred but unbroken, their shadows long and intertwined across the road. If this story has quieted the ache inside you, stay close. One more dawn remains, and with it comes the kind of peace that never leaves again. The morning broke over Ash Hollow like forgiveness itself. Gold light spilled across the rooftops, painting the world clean after too many years of dust and sorrow. The town was quiet, its usual noise hushed, as if it too understood what kind of ending this was. Wade Rourke stood outside the sheriff's office, hands resting easy on the rail. He wore no gun now. The weight that had lived at his side for half his life was gone, left behind in the desert. Beside him, Clara Bellamy waited, hair loose, face calm. The sun caught her eyes, turning them warm as whiskey. You ready? She asked. He looked at her, the faintest smile crossing his mouth. Been ready my whole life, just never knew for what. They stepped inside. The sheriff sat behind his desk, hat tipped back, pen scratching over papers. He looked up when they entered. Rourke, he said, you come to settle what's left? I came to end it proper, Wade said. He placed a folded paper on the desk, his statement of what happened at Santa Mesa, every word plain and true. How Cass Moreau had used his name, how blood had been spilled, and why. The sheriff read it slow, then set it aside. You know I could send this east, he said. Some lawman might come looking. Let him, Wade said. I've been found before. I'll be found again. But this time, I won't be hiding. The sheriff studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Ain't my business to chase ghosts. The territory's got enough real ones. He looked at Clara. You staying on? She met his gaze without flinching. We both are. The sheriff leaned back in his chair, eyes softening. Then make it count. Outside, the light had turned sharp and clear. Wade breathed deep, the air smelling of rain, wood smoke, and beginnings. Clara stood close, her hand brushing his. So, she said, what now? He looked toward the edge of town, where the land opened into forever. We build something that lasts, she smiled. Where? Right here, he said. This town needs mending, same as we do. He led her to a small rise beyond the church, a patch of land with cottonwoods and a view of the plains. The grass swayed gold in the breeze. You see that ridge? Wade said, sunsets there soft every evening. We could build a porch that faces it. Clara looked at him, her voice quiet. A porch? He nodded. With 2 chairs. One for you, one for me. She laughed, low and tender. That's all you want? After everything we've seen, it's all that makes sense. They stood there a long time, the world wide and forgiving around them. Wade reached into his coat and pulled out the silver ring that had once hung around her neck. He held it between his fingers, turning it in the light. "This belonged to your father," he said. "He gave you strength. Maybe now it gives you peace." She took it, tears glinting in her eyes. "And what gives you peace, Wade Rourke?" He stepped closer, his hand cupping her face. "You do." Their kiss came soft and certain. No fire this time, no desperation. Just stillness, the kind that comes when two broken hearts finally stop searching. When they parted, the world had gone quiet again, except for the wind in the trees and the far call of a hawk. Wade looked toward the horizon, then back at her. "You hear that?" She smiled. "The wind?" "No," he said, "that's the sound of everything finally right." They spent the day hammering old boards into new purpose, mending what could be mended. As the sun sank, the porch stood, crooked, humble, imperfect. They sat side by side, watching the light fade into the land that had taken and given so much. Wade poured 2 cups of coffee. The air smelled of dust and hope. "Never thought I'd see peace wearing your face," he said. She leaned against him. "Then don't look away." Night came soft. The first stars blinked through the dark. The world felt infinite and kind. Wade's arm slipped around her, holding her close. "Clara Bellamy," he said, voice low. "You turned vengeance into something I can live for." She smiled against his chest. "And you turned pain into home." They sat there long after the fire burned down, the desert wrapping them in silence. At last Wade spoke again, words barely more than breath. "Maybe every outlaw's story ends the same way. Only the lucky ones find someone worth laying down the gun for." "And you're one of the lucky ones," Clara said. He kissed the top of her head. "More than lucky. Free." The last of the light faded behind the ridge. The stars came full, bright as new beginnings. And in that quiet stretch of forever, 2 souls once bound by blood and fire found peace beneath the western sky. If this story has touched a tender place in your heart, let your light stay with us. Comment, share, and subscribe so this western fire keeps burning for you.